Hello and welcome to this new C programming tutorial. This is part 5, and in this tutorial we will learn how to use all the concepts we've already learned previously. So in the previous tutorials we learned kind of the most basic part of the C programming language. So right now we will kind of use it to create a simple terminal application. So here is our main function, and we want our application to interact with us. So we want to get user input. For that, we're gonna say f get s, which means get string, and we will tell where we want to store that string. So we want to create an array of characters, which is how we create a string in C. So we're gonna say char, and we will say input, and the size of this, we will specify the input size before, so right here. So we're gonna use const, which if you remember enables us to define a constant variable, and I will call this constant input size. By the way, it's a kind of a good practice, to a kind of convention, to use uppercase letters when we are defining constant variable names. So to the input size, I will set it maybe 20. Okay. And right here, the input array would be of size input size. Okay. And so this first line is defining. So we are missing something here. So we want to use an int. Okay. So, and constant integer, which is called input size, and stores the value 20. Okay. Now, then we have a character array, which is called input, and between square brackets we specify the size of the array, which means how many characters we will store in this variable. So now right here with the fgets method, we have to pass as the first parameter the place in which we want to store the user input. The place is called input, so it's just a previous variable we created. Then we have to pass the size of the input we want to get. In this case, we will get size 20, or actually input size. Okay, and now we have to specify from where we want to read the input. In this case, we want to read it from the keyboard. So the keyboard is std_in standard input. So that instruction will get whatever I type on the keyboard and will store it on the input variable. So right now I can print what I have received as input. So I'm gonna say print double quotes %s new line, comma, and I will here pass the input parameter. Okay, so now I will run this program. To run, I will press, first I have to compile /cc, and the program is compiled, and now /c1, and the program is waiting for input. So I'm gonna say hello, enter, and as you can see, hello is printed, and after that 2 new lines are printed. Why 2 new lines are printed? Well, I want to explain it to you right now. So this is of course one of those new lines, but also the input variable has another new line. The new line you enter when you press enter. So we don't really need this another new line right here because it already has one. Okay, so now we have the input. But what if we want to check if the input equals something, like a command, in order for us to run a program? Okay, so for that we will create a method that will compare kind of two strings, and we will do it in the following way. So you're gonna say char. We will use char to return true or false. So we're gonna say, for example, if the input is equals to exit, then it will return exit. If not, it will return, I mean, it will return true. If not, it will return false. So right here, you're gonna say char equals, and as parameters, I will pass two char pointers. So a pointer is an array, is a memory address that points to a place, in this case the first character of this string. Okay, so the first, I will call it S0 for string 0, and I will have another one, so I will compare two, and string pointer, I mean char pointer, as 1. Okay, so right now we have those two parameters, and here what this method will do is it will check if those two strings are the same, and it will return true or 1. So, and if they are different, it will return false. So as the first parameter, we will have to define a kind of a null terminator. Okay, so we can also define constants in the following way, kind of hard coding it in the actual compiled file. For that, this kind of a compiler preprocessor directive, and to define it, we're going to say number sign define, and for example, I want to call it null terminator, or line end maybe, so I call it L end. Okay, and I will set this to single quote \0. Okay, so this is how we define a kind of constant hard-coded variable, right? So that is the line end. What we will do now is, here inside this equals method, we will check for the first string, which should have the last character of the string should be a null terminator. Okay, so I'm gonna say a for loop for int I equals 0. Okay, we can actually learn something interesting here. Since we're using pointers, we exactly don't really explain exactly how pointers work, but we have to do an introduction before that. Okay, so I'm gonna say while. So maybe we have to do this. So we're gonna say int p equals 0. This will be kind of an index. So if you want to change it from p to index, I would say it. So int index equals 0. So here we will say while s0 at index is different than L end. What does it mean? So what does this line mean? So first I create an index. Then right here I check of this array, this S0 array, I go to the index of that array. So if the index is 0, I will be going to the first element. If index is 1, I'll go into the second element. In this case, second letter of the string. Okay? Awesome. And I will keep doing that until I reach the line end. Okay? So after here, I have to update the index to look for the next one. So I'm going to say index plus plus. And this is basically the structure of a while loop in C. Okay, so what will I check here? So first of all, I will check if the characters are different. Okay, so I'm gonna check if S0 at index, okay, is different than S1 at index. So if the character is different, I will return 0, which in C means return false. Okay, so as you can see, it's a pretty elegant code that is checking all of these right here. Okay, awesome. So we have checked this, and now we have to also return 1 when we have found that kind of is the same string. So after the while loop ends, we will return 1. Okay, so we have not we have not yet tested this. So we will test now. So right here, let me scroll this a bit down. Okay, so right here on the main method, we will print correct or something if we enter the right comment. So we're gonna say if equals, okay, if equals, and the first parameter we will pass will be hard-coded string, which means we have to define the first parameter in double quotes. For example, I don't know, hello, okay, doesn't matter. So if hello, so remember, first we pass the kind of string we want to compare, because this string ends with null terminator, and we are using the first parameter, we're assuming the first parameter ends with a null terminator. So we have to pass it here, and we're gonna pass the second parameter, of course, to input. Okay, so it says if hello equals input, we will print correct. So what will this program run? How this program will run? Well, when we run the program, it will ask for a comment, and if we enter hello, then it will print correct. Okay, and here we will also print a new line. Okay, awesome. So let's compile the program, and let's run the program, and it's asking for something, and I will type hello, and it prints correct. If I run the program again, if I type hi, it won't print correct. Okay, so it's kind of somehow working, but now we will test if it works really, really well. So maybe what happens if we press just hell? It doesn't print correct. What happens if we type hello oh? So it prints correct even though it's not correct. So we have our first problem right here. And what's happening, we can understand it by looking at our equals method right here. That we are returning 1 only if all the characters before line end were correct. But what happened after line end? Okay? So in this case, we're gonna check here the following. So before returning 1, I will check if the second string ends with a new line. And if the second string indeed ends with a new line, then we should return 1. And if the second string doesn't end with a new line, we should return 0. Okay? Okay, awesome. So right here we're gonna check if s1 at the index is different than new line. So we have defined line end right here, and now we will define new line. So we're gonna say number sign define n line for new line, single quotes \n. As you remember, this is how we were defining new line. Okay, so if the string 1, if the last character, if the last letter of the string 1, which is the second string, is not a new line, we will return 0. So if it's different than n line, we will return 0. Okay, and now we will run the code again, so compile and run again, and if I press hell, it doesn't print correct. If I press hello, it prints correct. And if I press hello, hello, oh, it doesn't print correct. So now we have a working method. So this method works for our case. So what does it method? It has some special characteristics. So let's create a multi-line comment to specify this a bit more. Okay? As you may remember, this is how we create a multi-line comment. So a comment is just a note for us, the programmers. So I will say equals method requires the first string to be to have a null terminator, which is in this case ln, as its last character. Okay, and it also requires the second string to end with a new line, which in our case we call n line. So this is explaining how the equals method works. So all you have to know to use the equal method, you don't really have to understand or read everything right here, but you have to pass the first string with a null terminator ending, and the second string will have to end with a new line. Okay, so that is how this will work. Okay, so now we have created our equals method. Now, what can we do with it? Okay, so now if we print hello, it is correct. But now, what if we do something else? So we can say else if equals, and we will compare maybe exit. Okay, if it's equal to exit input, okay, if input equals to exit, we will do something like printf %s /n, and we will print you typed exit. Okay, awesome. Right, so now we're gonna run the code. So let's compile it and run, and if I write exit, it says you typed exit. If I write hello, it says correct. If I write any other thing, it will just exit without any message. So it's okay to check maybe if the user pressed different commands and so on. But now we don't want the program to exit if we don't tell it to do so. So how do we prevent it? So here we will create an infinite loop. So we're gonna say, actually before right here, well, so you're gonna say while 1. So this is how you create an infinite loop in C. So this means while true, okay? And we will put the following inside it. So we will put the first thing inside the while loop will be the fgets line. So please move the fgets inside the while loop. And then we're gonna put all of these inside it. But as we grow this list, it won't look very fine. It won't look okay. So what we will do is we will call a method. Okay, so we're gonna create here a method. We're gonna call it void handle input. Okay, and we'll open this method, and inside this handle method input we will put this if statement right here. Okay, Okay, great. And I will put here. And as you can see, input is not accessible from this method. So to make it accessible, we will put these two lines right here as global variables. So how do we put it? Well, we'll move it outside and before the handle input method. Okay, so here we have moved the code to make it simpler to read out to a external method right here. And what we will do is we will call the method right here. You can say after we call fget, we will call handle input, and it will basically take care of everything that has to be done. So now we will run the program again, and we will check hello, it prints correct. If we press again hello, it again prints correct. If we go and say exit, it says you typed exit. So as you can see, the program is not exiting, okay? So now what will happen if I want to actually exit the program, right? How do I actually exit the program if I'm on this method? So for that, I will put a global variable right here, and I will set char infinite loop, okay, and I will set it to 0. Actually, I will set it to 1, okay, and here instead of 1, I will say while infinite loop, okay, and when we enter the exit command, I will break the infinite loop, the global variable. So I will set infinite loop equals to 0. So this is changing this value right here, and down here it will be set to false, and it will just exit. Okay? So now I will compile the program and run again, and I will say hello, it prints hello. If I say hello s, it doesn't print anything, and if I enter exit, then it says you typed exit and the program ends, exits the program. Okay, so that's how we can do this. Okay, so we can also add maybe more commands to this program. So we have hello exit, hello and the exit program. Maybe we want to do something else, so we can say else if equals, maybe could be something like I don't know, anything you may want. For example, how are you? If it equals to how are you, it will answer, I'll say okay, input, okay, and it will printf I am fine. Okay, I am fine. Okay, it looks great. Of course, we have to maybe print a new line right here. So if we compile and run this, and I will ask how are you, it will answer I'm fine. Okay, if I press exit, it will exit. So as you can see, how easy it is to write a program in C. So it's not that difficult, you know. You only have to follow the steps I'm doing and understanding. So in my case, I have 61 lines of code. But in those 61 lines of code, we first of all have to declare the main method. But you would say, why I would have to put the other methods before the main method? Well, because C is a procedural language. But it would say, how can I put maybe the handle input after the main method? So if I put the handle input after the main method, then here the handle input won't be found. So let me compile, and it says, warning, implicit declaration of function handle input is invalid in C99. Okay, so but we can also still fix this. Okay, how can we fix this? Well, we only define the method before main. So we're gonna say just void handle input, okay, and I ended there. So what this is saying is that we have a void method called handle input that it's defined somewhere in the file. So now if we run the compiler again, it doesn't have any error, and if we test it, then it works as we want. Okay, so how we can also do this for equals and so on. So again, to define the equals method, we are returning a character in this case, so it's different. So we're gonna say right here char equals, and as the first parameter we have a char pointer which is called s0, and another char pointer which is called s1, and that's how we define it. And now we can move this whole method, even with its explanation, below. We can move it below the handle input method, maybe, if we want to do so. So that really depends on how you want to organize your code. So if we move it below, as you can see, now we have our main method as the first method of our program. So, and here we have defined these two methods. We have these global variables, and maybe the program now looks better. Why it looks better? Because we can kind of follow the sequence of the program. So if we start to scroll from the top, we will say, okay, it starts on the main method, then it goes and calls handle input. So the next method, it's actually handle input. So we can keep scrolling and reading the program logic and understanding what it's doing. So this is the handle input method. And then we have the equals method right here. So if we scroll even more, we find our equals method right here. Okay, so this is basically how we define methods. So what we have learned so far. So with the stuff we have learned, we can do lots and lots of stuff. Okay, we have learned basic variable definition, constant, integers variables, floating point variables. We have learned how to define methods in C. We have learned while loops, for loops, how to print to the screen, how to get input from the keyboard, how to create single line comments, how to create multi-line comments, how to create strings, even though we haven't learned pointers yet. So in the next tutorial, we will learn pointers, and we will make something really, really cool. We will print cool patterns to the screen, kind of in a very simple video game maybe. So we will print cool patterns to the screen. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I see you in the next one. Bye.